governance and what can we do about it? How can we encourage each other to occupy these spaces? How can we support each other to occupy these spaces? You've seen we formed the Inject Party ourselves. We even gone ahead and joined other leaders in the opposition, not just to join, but rather the opposition actually belongs to the youth. So it's not just joining. We're actually going there to take up our space. Because right now, who is the opposition? The opposition is the young people of Kenya who demand accountability. And therefore, the opposition that used to be, we need to fill in that space, take it over, and show how we like our country to be governed. So if we don't occupy these spaces, again, it becomes very difficult to change our country, especially if we want to change it from the inside. The only way to change a country from the outside probably is by overthrowing the government. And that is a question we need to ask ourselves whether we are willing, capable, and able, whether it's even practical to do it. And it's not the kind of conversation we can even have on this space because then we don't know who is here and who is not here. But the question is, if we were to pursue our constitution and the constitution values that are there, how ready are young people to take up these spaces so that they can create opportunities for themselves to live, work, and grow? So I'm going to give more opportunities to you people to speak. This is not my space. It's not my opportunity to speak. It's more about me getting to listen. But if you're already on this space and you're listening to me, there are a few things that I want to bring to your attention, whose answers I would like. And I took the liberty of writing them down. It's just a minute. Let me read it to you. Um, okay. Today, as the speakers come up, any speaker who has any knowledge on this subject can also, chip in on this. How ready are Kenyans? This question number one. How ready are Kenyans to shift from identity politics to ideological politics? So Wakenya wako tayari kutoka kwa siasa ya identity, yaani ya kikabila, kwenda kwa siasa ya ideology, yaani ya mipango na miradi. Then second question that I have is, do you think Kibaki made a mistake by not punishing the corruption of the Moi regime and by extension opened a door for other people to repeat corruption mistakes because they knew they would not be punished? Number three is actually tied to number one. So we can just take it back to number one and put it inside there and say, in Kenya, we have the tribeless youth and we have the tribal villages. We have people who believe that they are Kamba Gen Zs, for example, or there are Luo Gen Zs, or there are Kikuyu Gen Zs. The reason I say this reality exists is because after June 25th, you saw that after Raila did the handshake, the Gen Zs in Kisumu did not continue with the demonstrations anymore. The demonstrations died down in Kisumu and Migori, meaning there are Gen Zs that identify with tribe. And this just didn't happen in Kisumu. It also happens sometimes in Mount Kenya and many other places, even in the Rift Valley. You have Gen Zs defending the government in spite of the government making them jobless, meaning there are Gen Zs who identify with the tribe. So the question is it possible for us to marry the tribeless with the tribal for purposes of winning the 2027 election? So we've identified that Ruto is not good for Kenya. And that's something I think we agree, 90% of us. The 10% that don't agree, I don't know what's wrong with them, but a good majority, an overwhelming majority of us agree That Ruto is not good for this country. So then the question is, how do we remove him? How do we form a coalition between those who say they are tribeless and those who say they are tribal? And how do we reconcile the two identities? So that was supposed to be number 3, but we've joined it to number 1. Number 2 was about Kibaki and the punishment for corruption. Um, mm, yes, I believe that is what I am, torn between, to just listen to people say what they think. And also, let's talk money and resources. Do you think resources are important for politics? Is it possible for young people to populate and occupy positions of governance without money? And if you believe that they must have the money, how will they raise it? Because I've made an attempt at public fundraising and you've seen how difficult it has been. However, I still keep going and keep trying, but it's not easy. The question is, uh, do you think that, public fundraising is a way of raising resources for young people to be able then to participate in leadership and governance? Is it necessary, or are there alternative ways of raising capital? Now, anybody who comes up to, I'm about to start accepting your request. If you come up to make your presentation, please mute your mic when other people are speaking. And when you speak, for us to have a good space and a good conversation, try to make your, I know, there are many frustrations among young people. People are annoyed. This government has failed them. The economy has failed them. But try to remain as respectful as you can be, so that then we are able to have a conversation and not a shouting match. We'll respect your opinion, then we'll respect the other person's opinion, we respect the other person's opinion, so that everybody has an opportunity to say something. Hiya, sawa sawa. So let's go to accepting these requests. You mute your mic immediately after you are accepted as a speaker. Uh, right, so I've accepted the requests that were pending. Let's see if there's any other. All right. So number 1 on the line, CMD Nyauma, you will be the first to go, but I can see he's still connecting, so I don't know how good that is going to be. So we can wait. As we wait for his internet to stabilize, let's have Yasa. Yasa, I think I studied with you in Maseno School. You go first.
Hello, Niaje Morara
Poa sana, poa sana.
and everyone. I think it's high time for us as youths to find ways on how we are going to drive this nation. And the issue of money has really been one of the challenges that people face. In mine, I won't talk about how money should be the way of leadership. Mi ningetaka kuzungumza about the youths, anyone who has an agenda and wants to bring the Kenyan government into place. It starts with the youth. The idea of, hey, Muhesh, utatupea ngapi? Muhesh, if someone wants to go and speak something important about the government, someone wants to give some information about how to build this country, it starts with us. The moment ule msee mwenye ako in spiral, anataka kusimama for a political seat, and then us as voters, we're always asking, na yetu iko wapi? Na yangu ya macho iko wapi? That is something we need to be asking ourselves. Where do you think that person who's vying for that position is getting that money from? And by the way, I don't condemn the idea of Morara, you taking the public fund. To me, I feel like it's a responsible way because you serve the nation, you serve the people. So taking the money from them, definitely people will hold you accountable. But the notion of us going back to the ground, someone speaks well, someone wants to address an issue, lazima tumuombe ya macho. Manze mi siwezi enda pale kusikiza huyo msee na hajatoa ya macho. The youths, you always tell them about the handouts, mtu atakuja kwambia, lakini unajua manze, mimi nisipoenda pale sitapata kitu yoyote ya kudishi. You need to ask yourself, for the last 5 years, what have you been eating before that person became a president, before that person became a member of parliament, before that person akuwe MCA? Wewe ulikuwa unakula nini? You never used to be eating in that person's house. You never used to be living in that person's place. Ulikuwa unatafuta your own means and your own ways. When we ask politicians to give us handouts, it's the same as us telling politicians continue stealing. Because mimi na vie for a member of parliament, before nipate hii position I need to pay. Before I get a platform to speak I need to pay. What do you expect me to do? Saa zile mimi nakuja nalipa pesa fulani ndo nikuje nipewe platform kuzungumza mahali fulani. I am keeping that. I am asking for money from somewhere else. That person is giving me that money and is giving me conditions. Hii pesa nitakupatia, at the end of the day, what is in for me when I vie, or what is in for me when you become a leader of parliament or you become someone. So these issues of handouts, I really feel we need to find out how do we address issues ya handout first of all, before ask us talking about resources, because kuna watu wanakuja na resources and they have expectations from you. What do you and how are you going to give them this expectation? Because right now, becoming an MP, becoming any leader, it has been lazima kukuwe na incentives, lazima wewe upeane community. President jana sijui juzi anaenda anapeana 20 million to just buy voters, to just buy individuals, so that we can go and take that money. After voting for that person goes and eat the whole money. We don't have means of holding them accountable. We don't have means of asking them where the projects are, because walitupatia pesa. So to me, Morara, I think we really need to address the issues of how do we stop the issues of handouts? How do we stop the issues of people listening to individual, na mtu asipotoa pesa yoyote, you're not going to listen to them? How do you expect then that member of parliament not to eat your money, not to eat the CDF money? If at all, wewe ulipiga kura kwa sababu ulipea shilingi 50. People have given 500 shillings here to rant on Twitter, to call people names. I'm so happy you've talked about people being respectful, but kuna wetu wengine they are not respectful. People are insulting people who have given out their body and energy to go and address issues without any handouts, lakini unakuja unastukia watu wengine wana condemn such issues. So to me, I'm really looking forward to how do we address the issues of youths not getting handouts. The moment you get a handout from someone, that is the end of you. You will be subjected to that person, na huyo mtu atakwambia kama ni twende left, you'll go left, twende right, you'll go right, because you don't think with your own brain. And lastly, I don't think we really need leaders wengi. We need systems to be put into place so that someone is accused or has been seen to be corrupt. We don't go through investigation, or we request you to nakuomba, or you should resign, or you should do this. No, you should just be stepped out. Umepatikana in corruption, nenda. We don't need to ask you to sijui resign. We don't need to ask East African Commission sijui what, and these political parties ambazo zinakuja zinaharibu mienendo. So we need to find out how do we sort out the issues of holding one another accountable, and how do we bring the systems into place. Now the president has been given too much power. Yeye ndo ana hire IG, yeye ndo ana appoint the chief justice, yeye ndo ana appoint the commissioners, yeye ndo ana appoint the tribunal. How do you expect to have a leadership, and how do we expect to move forward as a country if at all the leadership, all the important roles has been given to the executive, the president himself? He's the one who decides who becomes the IG, who becomes the whatever. So I think sijajibu that question vizuri, Mr. Morara, but I think this is something that we also need to address and see how do we move forward in terms of leadership, in terms of dividing the roles. Can the judiciary be independent itself so that they select their own chief justice and appoint their own chief justice? Can the executive be independent so that they don't interfere with the legislature? Ndo wakuwa wana decide on how things are moving. This thing will be able to stop us, so that those people who want to do politics, who wants to involve themselves into politics, they can be able to get resources that come from the government itself, because government is supposed to be assisting individuals who are vying for political seats by supporting the initiative and making them more popular so that they can drive these initiatives. See at the idea a billionaire somewhere comes and picks you and then gives you money, you become a toy, unakuwa tu mse, you are nobody, because someone is giving you money and that money directs you on what he wants you to do. So we really need to find out how we address the issues of money and politics and how we address the issues of governance. I think for now I will stop from there.
Thank you, Yasa. Thank you so much. He has brought a new angle. He has brought a new angle to it, which is the issue of people taking money, which actually begs the question: is it actually possible to stop people from taking money? People are hungry. People don't have food. People don't have basic needs. So if there is money somewhere, what is the likelihood that they will not show up and take up that money? Now, different leaders are adopting different ways of dealing with the question of money, because if you don't deal with the question of money, then njaa ya comrade ama njaa ya Gen Z ama njaa ya millennial itakutana na pesa ya Ruto na watalala kitanda moja na watapata mtoto. The money, Ruto's money together with njaa ya vijana, they might meet somewhere down the road. So how do we deal with the question of money? For someone that I've heard talk about money, I've heard Rigathi Gachagua talk about money, and what he tells the people is, go take the money, but don't vote for these people. Well, I come from a very, very different school of thought. I actually know that some of these politicians are in deep cults and in very deep demonic things, and sometimes they take this money to demonic altars before they actually give it to the people. So when you receive the money, you've actually made a contract with the money and with wherever the money came from. So it becomes very difficult for you to break up from that spiritual contract. But not everybody is spiritual like me, and definitely not everybody is a Christian. So I may not want to impose my beliefs and thoughts on you, but it's good for you to reflect on how we'll deal with the question of money. Will we tell people take the money but don't vote, or will we demonize money so that they don't take the money? Both can work. Uh, I've actually seen where money has been demonized somewhere in a campaign and people did not take the money, but how practical is it with the current economic time? So I may know this money is evil, but the kind of hunger that people have, will they really fail to take the money? So that's another angle to it. How the youth will avoid the trap of money, which may sabotage whatever they want to do. Brian Osoro, you're next.
Am I audible?
Very audible.
Yeah, so hamjambo kila mtu. Mine was, um, I'll not call it philosophical, but I feel like part of the reason why people take bribes is because, apart from even taking bribes, because I think that's usually the next stage. I feel like Kenyans don't understand the roles of politicians or leaders. Why do I say that? Because they don't understand the roles of politicians. A politician is allowed to say anything, or a leader. Let me not use the word politician because maybe it's derogatory. So these people are allowed to say anything and everything. And then coupled, na hiyo wanaweka pesa ya bribe. So this question of money and what are the things we can do to make voter bribery iende chini, or electing somebody because akona pesa iende chini. I feel like that is especially right now, because the election is a few years away. It is doable, but I don't think it should be the main focus right now. Because what I feel like the focus right now is to change this leadership. Of course, they're going to use money as a tool of kuhamasisha the voters, but what we have right now in our context is that the Kenyan has been squeezed economically, socially, and even psychologically. So I don't think they even have the time to try to understand what the roles of these leaders are. Whatever it is that Morara you're doing about civic education, I feel like that is very powerful in terms of the citizen should know that this president, even if he can stand on top of the roof of his vehicle and say that he's going to bring a road or he's going to do development, that it's he's not even he doesn't even come up with the budget. It's in the parliamentarians are the ones that do that. He's the head of the executive. So I feel like if Kenyans understood the specific roles of the different leaders, we might be at a very good position. And I feel like the other thing is, especially for young leaders, we seem to be very creative and maybe opinionated, and we don't give ourselves time to put out our points. You will find that one of us can come up with a way of doing things or doing campaigns, and then almost immediately you even wonder what is the problem here. That young leader is, people start calling him names and etc. That only empowers the rooters of this world, because now they start to see the weaknesses, or rather perceived weaknesses of these young leaders. So it's okay for us to disagree. Of course, it's going to be impractical to imagine that people don't disagree. But I feel like if you can improve on that in terms of, yes, I see what you're doing, I don't agree with it. I should not start calling you, oh, melipwa, oh, sijui nini, that, what does that do? It reduces this youth block, as you put it. And all of a sudden, we start becoming like these people we don't want to become, because that's who they are. There's a quote somewhere, somebody said, we become what we detest. And as interesting as that sounds, how do we become what we detest? Every time somebody comes with a different way of looking at the same thing, I don't know why society always throws stones at these people. Right now, me, what I think, we are in the teething stage of what Kenya is, this Kenyan experiment. We are trying to shift how people think. We are trying to understand that a politician or a leader si yule akona pesa, ni yule ambaye akona miundo misingi ambayo ina make sense. That shift will require a lot of effort, but at the same time, it will require us to really understand and communicate to the people who are not able to get to this level, whereby if Raila Odinga tells you you are a Luo or you come from that region, listen to me. How? Because that is very important. We can be here and we pretend that, oh, this guy does not have sway. He has sway. That is something that is very palpable. Like, we have seen that. But why are these people oriented to delegate their thought to the Raila Odingas and to the Rutos? I feel like that is a very important question. What you will realize is part of the reason why they're oriented that way is because they feel, one, hawa watu tumetoka nao region moja, it's okay to have our person there. But what I like about the youth, it's the, I don't know how to put it, but there's a selfishness there whereby we're like, no, what is it for me? Because this thing of community is what I've never understood. If you go to the shop, you are a Kikuyu, and the shop owner or the shopkeeper is Kikuyu, you cannot, you know, tell the person that you are Kikuyu, so you need to be given things for free. So how that kind of what can I say? Putting that kind of thinking to the level of the common folk. I feel like that is where we need to really focus on. And as I, drop the mic, um, this is what I this is what I think. Yes, we don't like whatever is happening in our country. We feel like it needs to be better. In that spirit, we need to register in our numbers. Sometimes I feel like we get distracted over things which are not very helpful. Yes, we hate the guy. That I understand. Removing this guy, like what Morara was saying, either we go and overthrow or it's through the ballots. And IBC does not count how angry you are. It counts your votes. So me, what I will say is that whatever it is that we are trying to do, we need to understand this is a political process. Politics is about numbers. We register in our numbers. We organize in a way that even on that voting day, as we cast our votes hatuondoki, we record that 34A form, tuna post kila mahali, we have tallying centers, everything is manned. If, I can tell you, if we're able to do that, if these people reconstitute the IEBC, let's say we reconstitute next week, and we start recalling these MPs, there's nothing. Ask yourself, why do you think right now we have like 6 or 7 or 8 MPs who, through natural attrition, or some who have been, body and this kind of energy, elections need to happen. Ask yourself, why do you think Ruto does not want that to happen? Because he knows if the IBC is reconstituted, tutatokea, tutaonyesha how UDA, because right now people think, oh, you cannot defeat Ruto, you cannot, somehow Ruto is made to be this godlike figure. He's not. If the IBC is commissioned, we are able to demonstrate even to these old people who will be like, hawa vijana kweli hawachezi. So these people, they have called for by-elections,
Just
they have been
land,
called an
land.
MP. Yes, so let me land.
All right, thank you, Brian. So from now on, I think I'll just give 2 minutes to everyone. So I have a stopwatch next to me. But Brian has brought out a very important thing about what we should do, and he has also emphasized the importance of civic education. Civic education is very important because then how do we change the mindset of the people? The question is, do we have the resources? Do we have the time? And do we have the willingness to do this civic education? Because to do civic education, you need resources because Kenya is big. And the problem with us is we only do civic education on social media, forgetting that majority of the voters are actually in the villages. Politicians are in churches, politicians are in funerals, chaperoning their agenda. What are we doing on the ground to counter that in terms of how they are selling their agenda? So that is a good question. Then, secondly, do we have the resources to do it? And do we have the willingness? How willing are young people to for this change? If people are not very willing to step out of their comfort zone and go for civic education, then what is more practical to do? Yani, I'm not here for us to discuss the sweet, rosy things. Oh, this is what we can do. Kenya will be like Singapore. Let's be practical. If Kenyans are tribal, let's say they are tribal. How do we deal with them tribal as they are? Or if we want to change them from tribalism, what will it take? And is it possible and actionable? Collins, next.
Thank you so much, Morala Kebaso. Thank you. Good evening. How is everyone? How are you doing? Because I have just heard, Morala said we have only two, meetings to 3 meetings. I want to use them effectively so that I can finish what I have. And yes, congratulations, Morara, to what you're doing. What you started in, last year, August, or during the Gen Z movement, you know, it is what it takes to change this country. And that is a good step because I know where we are going. The future is very luminous. And moving on swiftly, sorry for that. I need to talk about youth manipulation because honestly, the political atmosphere, the, the political climate, it is too high. You know, so many things are happening. You don't wake up today, you know, wake up tomorrow, you hear that, I don't know, Gachagua is doing what. He was once, enemies of the people. He has become pro people. We are not working up with Raila. I don't know. He's consulting what to do what. We are not working up, with the person of the president, who is moving around the country, going to the churches, donating millions of money. When we have citizens, when we have patients in the hospitals who are suffering, honestly. So the political atmosphere is very high. And this, drives me to how are youths, focused and determined? Because if we don't watch ourselves, we are going to be manipulated and misled, in the process. Once genuine, once tribalist and leaderless Gen Zs, we are going to be manipulated and we end up being the same people, We cannot afford to make the same mistakes our parents have made 10 years ago for decades. We cannot afford to do that. And we cannot afford to step back to such kind of, issues and problem, atrocities. Again, I need to talk about a little about contribution, from the public. When you look at youth, and the politicians, there is, there is a very big difference. And we as youths, talking of offering ourselves as alternative, offering ourselves as leaders, with the principles, with the virtues, with the values of leadership, it will be very difficult for us, you know, to compete against these corrupt politicians. So it is only that when we get contribution from the public, when the citizens, fund for the candidates, when the citizens owns their candidates, when citizens own the leaders, that we are going to hold them accountable. And lastly, because I don't want to waste much of the time, I need to finish about weaponization of identity and things to do with tribal politics. And I want to say that honestly, tribal politics has driven us to where we are today. And it is because of, such atrocities, such issues that, you know, become entrenched. They are entrenched already. It's a culture, is a kind of a culture. So it's upon us, it's upon the citizen, it's upon every enlightened, individual and Kenyan to enlighten the other, that we need to fight the entrenched system, system of impunity, system of corruption, and weaponization of identity. And lastly, I need to talk about the issue to do with the Occupy Jesus winner that has been trading, of late. That is the way to go. Let us set the pace. They are not going to believe because they have been thinking we are just keyboard warriors. We are only following social media. We cannot do anything. Let us, be united and let's meet at, Jesus winner on 9th of this month and do the necessary. Thank you, and be blessed. Good night.
Thank you so much, Collins. The next speaker, please try to stay to the 2 minutes. But we continue to appreciate your conversations, and please, we are taking notes. So as you speak, we are listening. McQueens, you're next.
Uh, Thank you Morara, na hope wananisikiza fiti. Mi ndakuwa straight, sorry. Ndaongea haraka na ndaongea short Mi kitu naweza sema about hii kukab corruption during election period ni kitu moja tu. Utapata hawa wase wanaendanga kuchukua hizi pesa zao ma politicians ni watu wana job. First of all ni wase like hao se wana job ya kufanya, ndio kwa maana utawapata wanaenda wakipanga line only to collect hiyo 100 bob, that 200 bob. So solution inaweza kuwa simple, tukiconnect hao se na job, wapate job. Hao se wakipata kazi, employment, sidhani kaa watakuwa wanakimbilia 100 ama 200 za hizo au ma politicians ndo wavotie. So hao se wakikuwa connected na job, nadhani hiyo story ya corruption during election nini inaweza kuwa sorted out ama curbed. Alafu nikiongelea hiyo issue ya kufundraise during election ama vile wewe Morara ufundraising, mi sioni ubaya hapo, because hadi huko states naona kama politician ufundraise, because hiyo office wanaenda kuhold it's a public office na the only way watakuwa accountable to the people ni kama the people wamewachangia do za campaign. Juu atakuwa anaenda kwa ofisi anasema hao wase walinipatia hii do ya campaign, haizi enda hapo kuiba, ataenda hapo kufanyia kazi wananchi. Mi ndasema tu hiyo, alafu Morara Kebaso, shout out to what you are doing mazee, ina change lives bro. Yeah.
Thank you so much, McQueens. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Actually, you've spent 1 minute 48 seconds. Amazing. Thank you so much.